If you or someone you know has diabetes, you may have built up an extra supply of test strips and lancets. That's where we come in. We'll buy the supplies that you don't need and resell them to those in need to prevent waste. Help us make diabetes management more affordable. Visit us at teststripswithaz.com.
All right, we have Johnny Cupcakes Campbell on the show. He will return to action November 2nd at Cage Titans 46 in the main event, taking on Bruno Dias. Cupcakes has been freed, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, man?
Fantastic. Feels good to be free. That is for sure. How have you been doing, Mike?
I've been doing great. So let's talk about that, because we spoke about a month or so ago. You were in a fight, a different kind of fight with the state of Rhode Island. You had your last fight in July, CES 57. You get the win. You finish the fight in the second round. All was good until you found out you were flagged by the commission for a positive drug test. It was a marijuana offense. It turned out Rhode Island wasn't really clear on the WADA guidelines they added to the mix, so to speak, last year. You fought it. You got cleared to resume your career. You got your win back, and now you got a big fight coming up. What a whirlwind of crap being flung in your direction. How much of a weight was lifted off your shoulders when you got that email saying that you were clear of all of this?
Yeah, man, absolutely a weight lifted off my shoulders. In a way, it did feel like justice was going to be served regardless. So part of me was feeling like it was already rectified and done. But once they finally did send me the email admitting that they really had no grounds to suspend me in the first place, it was a fantastic feeling. I'm pretty sure I fist pumped and maybe did like one of these, something like that. I was super pumped.
One of the things you told me in that conversation was you hadn't really trained or anything while you were dealing with this whole thing. Now that I'm not sure when you actually got back to training, but when did you get back to training? Because you felt like a lot of this was going to go away and that justice was going to be served here. But when did you actually get back to the gym and start training again?
I mean, back like full time, probably not even until Bruno, I really think. There was just the whole situation left me kind of feeling a little bit in like a funk, I guess, and it just didn't feel like right to be in my normal schedule. It almost felt like my attention was fixed on trying to get this figured out. So I felt like a lot of my energy was going in that direction. And because of that, it was kind of difficult to really like get back in the groove. So, I mean, I'm always thinking about fighting, always watching, tape and guys and whatnot. And so I do nothing really but teach martial arts now. So, I mean, I'm constantly in the gym, constantly kind of mentally working on my stuff. But physically, I really didn't get back training hard until Bruno was announced.
Because a lot of people would need some time, couple months or so, to sort of get back into the routine, get back to the mindset of a professional fighter. How are you able to just flip the switch like that?
This is just what I do. My body, since I was about 6 years old, I have been competing in sports and I mean, from an early age, I feel like my parents understood what it took to be successful in athletics. So they pushed me to really to really drive myself and to train hard. So when I played hockey, I mean, it was, hockey practice, 2 teams I was playing on. So I played 2-3 hockey practices a week. Then we'd be doing 2 power skatings a week and then a game, if not 2 games. So growing up, then high school, it was like practice every single day. Once I got into fighting, it was just like, oh yeah, I love this stuff. Why wouldn't I do it every single day? So it just, as soon as it was fight time, it was just like, the switch was just switched. I wanted to fight right after Chris for Cage Titans. I was supposed to main event one of their combat nights before all this happened. So especially right now in my career, I'm just looking to be as active as humanly possible. And I'm just not really looking to make any excuses or anything like that. So I'm right back to it, trying to fight and the best guys I possibly can.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike Pulver in Boston heading into the UFC event. Did an interview with him, which is going to be coming out of FloCombat very soon, to preview this card and talk about your situation and such. And I asked how this fight with Bruno came together. And there's something about your gym where you and other guys that train there just want to go out there and get the toughest fight possible. Bruno seems to be one of those guys because not a lot of people are knocking on the door to fight a guy like that with nearly 30 fights of experience. How did this fight with Bruno come together for you?
I mean, it started coming together when he was barking at Kin Moy online at one point a few months ago. He was having trouble finding fights, and I mean, I don't really think that that's a good excuse to not be in the cage. I feel like at 19 and 10 and a black belt in jiu-jitsu, if he really wanted to be in that cage, he'd be traveling if he had to. He'd be taking short notice fights. He'd be scouring the area for guys who would want to fight him. So when he was barking at Kin Moy, like, oh, nobody wants to fight me. You said you'd fight me. Now you won't fight me. It was kind of like, dude, I'll fight freaking anybody. So, put my name on the list. I think I had the fight maybe with Chris lined up at that point, or like things just weren't aligning properly for us. So after I beat Chris, I just mentioned his name in a video, and like, I don't even know, Flies on Honey or whatever it is. He was just all over that. He wanted that bad. So I'm totally obliged to smash Bruno. So I really look forward to doing that. I think that he's a great fighter, and I think that he poses a ton of risks, but that's what makes this fight absolutely electrifying for me. I have no interest in fighting guys who I know I can beat. Like, I loved Chris Motino because I knew that he could take almost everything that I could give him and just keep coming forward. I knew that guys in the area respected the crap out of him, and I jumped at the opportunity to fight him. And Bruno's very little difference from Bruno. It was just, this fight made sense for me in so many ways, even though a lot of people do think that it doesn't make sense. I on the contrary, I see a ton of opportunity with this fight.
He's taken some boxing fights recently. I'm sure he's done some grappling events as well, but he has a lot of experience. He's fought in Brazil. He's fought for ACB, but he hasn't competed, at least in my research, in MMA in over 2 years. Is it difficult preparing for a guy like that, knowing that he's got all that experience, but hasn't had anything really recent for you to scout out or go off of? You know what I mean? I'm not sure if you're a guy who watches film or research. How is that preparing for a guy like that who hasn't fought in over 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, lots. I always do research. I love to know my opponent before I even get in the cage, so he's no different. I feel like with him and with a lot of guys, most guys, I'll say, they don't really evolve or change very much. I mean, even I have made, I think, incredible improvements over the last few years, but like on the surface, my style is pretty similar, and I don't throw a ton of different types of techniques. I've just gotten better at those particular techniques. So I think that Bruno is similar. I've watched quite a few of his fights. I see things in his stand-up that he'll probably be. It would be incredibly difficult for him to remove some of the stuff in his game that I've picked up on. Just the way that he attacks, the combinations that he uses. I feel like I know him very well, and although he hasn't fought in 2 years, I think that advantage to me. Going and losing 2 boxing matches, I don't know what he's trying to do or prove with that, but I'm not really sure. Then Pedro guillotines him. I mean, if I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu and I get guillotined by anybody, I think I'd hang it up. So I don't really know. I think that what he's shown me in the last couple of years is that he's in it to probably make money, probably look like a tough guy. He's a professor, BJJ coach. So I'm sure that he tries to kind of placate to his audience and show them that he's still a badass and whatnot. But when we get in the cage on the second, it's going to be that guy versus a guy who feels like he's meant to be in that situation specifically to destroy Bruno Dias. And when those two gentlemen meet, a guy who's in it for those reasons that he's in it for and the reasons that I'm in it for, it's just not going to be good for Bruno Dias that night. I'm looking to just absolutely murder people inside the cage, and I just don't know if that fire lives inside him. Not from what I can see, and I feel like I read people like a book. So
one of the things that I took away from our last conversation is you feel like you're in this, like your big surge right now. Like you've taken out a couple of really bright prospects. You feel like this is the time to make your big move towards the UFCs and the Bellators of the world. And every fight is a big fight for you for sure to get to that point. Pressure comes with fighting a lot just for the sake of the fight. But to add those kinds of variables to it, I'm sure it adds the pressure even more. How do you deal with that pressure? And are you a guy that needs to sort of pile it on, so to speak, to rise to the occasion?
Not necessarily. I feel like I always do a pretty good job of rising to the occasion in a natural way, and I think it just comes down to I don't really think all that much about the pressure. I think that pressure is more of a mental thing, and you can ratchet that up to 11 and crumble underneath it. Or there are people who are successful in this world, and when you look at those people, what they all tend to have in common is that they don't really fear the outcome, or they don't focus on what could happen. They're only focused on really what they want to achieve. And I think that that's one of the ways I'm not looking past Bruno, but I'm looking like right through that pressure. The pressure that is really only the outcomes that I don't want to happen. Like those outcomes are the ones that will make anxiety happen and pressure build. So I'm really just focused on what I want, what I'm trying to achieve, which is be the best martial artist that I can be and fight to the absolute highest caliber that I can. And I don't even think I've shown an inkling of what my potential is. And so I think that Bruno Dias is the perfect opportunity to display that. So I'm really just grateful. I feel zero pressure going into this fight. I just can't wait really to be in that back room or on that stage, like ready to walk out. It is such a unique feeling. And the way that I've felt lately is just so calm, and like in the zone is such a cliche word, but I'm just not thinking about anything in those moments before the fight other than being happy and grateful just for the opportunity to be there. And it gives me freedom inside the cage that I'm able to be myself in a way that I've just not always been able to do. And Bruno is just a little bit better opponent, right? He's a little bit more dangerous than Chris. He's a little bit on paper a little bit scarier. I think it's the perfect fight. He has UFC level jiu-jitsu. I think it would be hard to argue that being a black belt. So he's just the next tough guy that I'm going to smash, and I feel zero pressure.
To kind of add to that, usually you're by far the more experienced guy in these fights based on how active you've been in this area. And, he's right there with you with the experience of, did you feel like, listen, not only is he the toughest fight, but I've taken out these young, hungry lions that are trying to make a name off of me. I need to add that statement win against a wily veteran to my resume. Is that how you looked at this as well?
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know if we've spoken about it, but I've talked about it a few times lately. I was out in Vegas recently with Pete Barrett when he was doing his contender stuff, and we ran into some guy who was a coach manager of a 155er who had been cut from the UFC, and the UFC basically told him, like, look, you're in the most stacked division in the league. You may as well hang it up. Don't even bother trying to come back. And he went out and rattled off like 11 wins in a row off just absolute badasses. And they called him up and went, hey, dude, welcome back to the UFC. And when I heard that story, it was like, all right, that is what we're going to do now. We're going to smash everyone that we can, the toughest guys possible. After I lost to, I think it was Dubuque, it was like a really, really weird decision. And Pulver and I talked and discussed maybe I should travel a little bit, get away from some of these Massachusetts judges who maybe have nothing against me, but they might just have some kind of preconceived idea of who I am. So maybe they're looking at fights in a certain way. So that's what we did. We traveled. We beat Lugo. We beat Motino outside of Cage Titans. So I think it's just fitting now to come back to Cage Titans to kind of come full circle and keep on, doing what we're doing here. And that's the plan. Beat everyone we can as spectacularly as possible and make sure they're the toughest guys. So when the UFC peeks at my name and they see like, oh, wow, he's on a 7-fight win streak and every one of them is a winning record and a couple of them were undefeated and 3 of them are black belts, and it's going to be hard. They're going to want my ass in that UFC by the time I'm done doing what I am on the regional circuit.
No matter what you do in your life, if you travel and do all these different things, like you're having fun, you're enjoying what you're doing, you're still doing what you're doing, it's always good to come home. That's the old cliche thing. It's always good to come home. Is it always good? Is it good to come home for you? Are you excited to be back home, so to speak, after traveling for the last couple of fights?
Absolutely. Yep, definitely it will. I've had a good group of people coming with me to these fights in Connecticut and Rhode Island. But I mean, when I fight in Cage Titans, my name is so well known in that region that like every single person in that place turns their head to watch the fight. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I've heard, even guys from, fans from other gyms, people who train at other gyms. It just seems like when I get on to fight, everybody is pumped about it, and I love that. That's kind of one of the reasons I really got into this in the first place. I love the roar of the crowd. Playing hockey back in the day, I used to hit people. I loved hitting people, and when I upended someone, the crowd would go crazy, and I love that. So when I walk down those stairs at Cage Titans, and every single person in that place is rocking, for me, it's gonna be amazing. So I love fighting for Cage Titans for various reasons, but I think the fans are number one.
How does this all go down next Saturday at Plymouth Memorial Hall? How do you put an exclamation point on the night's festivities?
It is going to be an incredible fight, no doubt about it. I think potentially fight of the year, whether it's 1 round, 1 minute, or 3 rounds, 15 minutes. My intention is to just take his head off, basically. So, I mean, he is an aggressive striker, so he's going to come forward at times. My plan is just stand my ground and try to take his head off when he tries to shoot, because inevitably he's going to have to. I'm going to push his head into the mat, and I'm going to smash his face with my hands and with my elbows. And when he rolls onto his back, like almost all jiu-jitsu guys do, I'm going to assume dominant position, and I'm going to finish this guy. If I don't finish him on the feet, then I will finish him on the ground. I respect his jiu-jitsu, but I respect his jiu-jitsu so much that I'm not going to allow him to do any of it. I'm going to get into positions where his jiu-jitsu doesn't matter. I'm going to isolate his limbs, and I'm just going to batter his face until it looks like he got stung by 1,000 bees. And if he makes it to that point, I will be absolutely impressed, and I'll bow down to him. But I feel like he'll wilt earlier than that, like a normal man should. And the night will be capped off at that moment. So I just cannot wait to get in that cage, feel those feelings, smash this guy, and then cash my check and put some money in my bank.
With everything that you have gone through, you're obviously looking forward to everything you're about to do. You appreciate getting back in the cage after everything. You're ready to make your big move here, but you've had an up and down road in your career. Do you appreciate this road even more, knowing that you've learned that it can be taken away from you at any time, without any fault of your own?
Of course, 100%. It just wouldn't. I don't think everything would be the same if I was like, even like Manny Bermudez, who just had like this incredible rise to stardom, who I got to be a very close witness to, being one of my training partners. I mean, he was like 11, 12-0 getting into the UFC. There are so many guys like that. And I just feel like I am blessed to be the guy who took 12 L's. I needed that, I wanted to be in the UFC when I was like a 3-1 pro. And then shortly after that, I lost to frickin' Tadeki Matsuda, and then like a couple other guys. That guy who wanted to be in the UFC couldn't have been in the UFC. I needed to lose these fights in order to get to this place where I am right now. So, I mean, this road up, down, all around, it's really been an absolute journey and blessing to me. And I can't wait. I think it's going to be a great story one day, however it's told. And it's about never giving up, trusting in yourself, and just listening to everybody that's around you, that's trying to help. So many people, good, bad, whatever it is. The universe doesn't look at things like good and bad. Sometimes the bad is really good, but it's just hard to view it that way. So perspective is another one. I've just learned so much on this journey. I'm a lucky guy. So I'm just happy to now go show everyone what I've learned, all these lessons that I've taken and turned into positives. And I'm going to go display that on Bruno Jacare on November 2nd. And hopefully he has some green hair. So it will, I think red and green coming up on Christmas will be kind of cool. So I can bloody his face and head, and he's got some green hair that should look cool.
What do you want to say to the people who have stood by you through all this, to New England, even to the people who, doubted you, called you a cheater through all of this? What do you want to say to those people?
Just, thank you, really, ultimately, everybody. I mean, Mike, you yourself as well. I mean, you interviewing me and just putting that energy out there, and it helped so much in this last, fight and battle that I had with the athletic commission. But thank you is really all I can say to everyone. That's the best that I have. All the people that have helped me, supported me, bought tickets, bought T-shirts, shared my posts, liked my posts. Obviously, thank you to them. But then the negative folk as well, the people who thought I cheated or have hated on me or thought that I talk too much shit or whatever it is that I do. Thank you to them too, because it's all like a yin and a yang. So without the light, the dark would be nothing, or vice versa. So I'm just incredibly grateful to everyone and for everyone. So if you love me, thank you. If you hate me, thank you even more.
Cupcakes is free, everybody, and he'll be back at the Cage Titans cage next Saturday, November 2nd, headlining Cage Titans 46 against Bruno Dias. It's going to be a hell of a fight, hell of an event. It always is at Plymouth Memorial Hall. Johnny, thanks for the time. Before we let you go, man, let the folks know where they can find and follow you on social media. Anything else you want to get off your chest? Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it so much. So Johnny CC MMA on pretty much everything. Johnny, Johnny CC MMA, Instagram, Twitter. Hit me up on Facebook at Johnny Cupcakes Campbell. I appreciate everything. My people at South Shore Sport Fighting, UFC Gym, Kim Moy, some of the guys over at Citadel, Rugged RX Fitness doing my conditioning and whatnot, and of course Cage Titans. And the media of local and regional, you guys are outstanding and beyond. So I appreciate you guys giving us a platform to do all this and be kind of in the limelight a little bit. It makes this even better. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to perform for Cupcakes Nation. Thank you for all my fans and friends. You guys are awesome. I appreciate everyone.
Well, it's great having this type of conversation with you, and we're going to do some, because you're going to be active, going to be very active, so we're going to do a lot more of these in the future. Looking forward to the fight, and you can watch it right here on FloCombat. Thanks again, Johnny. All the best to you on November 2nd.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.